My name is Mostafa Malki. I'm a visiting associate professor of economics and finance and entrepreneurship at UT-RGV and the executive director for the America Additive Foundry business development at the Chemic Center.
Mustafa, today's subject is all about Sweden. Tell us about Sweden.
Okay, where should I begin? There's so much, to say about Sweden. Sweden is a relatively small country population-wise, but area-wise it's very big. So it has very low population density, but it has also a very big presence in terms of industries and innovation and so on. So it's one of the top countries in the world in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship and so on. So if you look at the number of companies, actually if we can calculate a ratio of multi-billion-dollar corporations per capita, they are probably the number one country. So there are a lot of very big, companies that are household names, Volvo, IKEA, and Ericsson, and so on, that are Swedish companies. There are some that are also very big multinational companies, but they're not very well known because they do business to business, type of work. But it's a very fascinating country for a very small country to be able to be a major player, in manufacturing industry and innovation. Yeah.
And so recently, within the last year or so, you and Dr. Lee from UT-RGV visited Sweden. You visited a few other countries in Europe, but most of your stops were in Sweden.
Sweden and Germany, but Sweden was our main stop. I have been going to Sweden for quite some time, and I've took students to Sweden as part of a study abroad program back in 2012, I believe. But I have an extensive network of partners and collaborators that are serial entrepreneurs and innovators, but also researchers and CEOs of innovation centers and science parks. So I tend to go there at least twice a year. And I go both, to see friends, but also to see what's the latest thing that they're working on that we could bring, to our region. They have things that they do very well, and there are things that we do better than anybody else. So I have these collaborators, these friends of mine, also come at least twice a year to the US to see what we're doing, and we see what we're doing. So we are trying to create a bridge, between us and Northern Europe, not just Sweden, but Sweden is the core, the hub. And we look at things that we can help them with and things that they do better that they can help us with. Yeah. So
in your presentation tonight, you said that Sweden perhaps was like the fourth highest investor in the US.
Yes. They are ranked, it's the fourth biggest investor, in the US, I believe, out of Europe. They may be even higher than that. I have to go back and look. I've looked at the data quite some time ago. But, and I think it's because of, the country, the population, the size of the market, and so on. That's why they tend to, incubate something, grow it, and then right after they grow it, they move to bigger markets. They tend to come to New York and London, because they're financial markets. But New York is, is a big attraction to them to raise funds. So Spotify and Skype and Minecraft, these are all Swedish companies. But there are also companies that a lot of people don't know about, and they use their products every day. Tetra Pak, for example, I don't know, most people probably don't know what Tetra Pak does, but everybody uses their product every day. So it's a packing company. When you buy a carton of milk or of juice, if you flip it and read the bottom of it, it says Tetra Pak. So it's a family-owned company that was started right after the war, the World War II, and it's present in 172 countries and it's family owned, and it's about $17 billion in revenue, and they are everywhere. So they have that, that culture of innovation and so on. That's very interesting and very fascinating. And we do have some similarities here because we have, our culture here is also very innovative, very creative. So we have those similarities.
So like you said earlier, you believe a bridge can be created between the Rio Grande Valley and Sweden. Tell us how that could happen.
Well, most Europeans, most of the world, not just Europeans, when they think of the US, they think of the big cities, New York, LA, Chicago, Miami, the big cities. So to them, that's the US. The rest, they don't think too much about it because it's not really as visible and as big and doesn't draw a lot of attention. What we wanted to do is introduce through our network our region to show them, what we have, the assets, the resources that we have. We are ideally located. We are right on the border. We have a deep sea port. We have, major, in relative terms, metropolitan areas, the Brownsville MSA and the McAllen Mission Far MSA. So, and we also have a history of manufacturing on both sides of the border, but not too many people, know about what we have here. So we talked, with our friends from Texas, actually from Sweden, and they came to Texas and they loved the region. So one of my closest friends has been here 14 or 15 times right now. So every year he comes here. And we had them in June, I believe, in the beginning of June. We had 4 people that he led and brought them here. These are 4 business people that are looking for business opportunities here, looking to open branches of their businesses here in the US. And they liked the region. We looked at, the workforce. We visited, community colleges to see what programs they have in terms of training, workforce. They visited our university and visited our labs to see what we have. And they realized, this is an ideal place to be. But it's not very well, advertised, because it's...
Do you think it will be, the specialization will be advanced manufacturing?
It will be one of the specializations because advanced manufacturing touches on a lot of different industries, from polymers to metals and, from automotive to electronics and so on. But I think, leveraging the assets that we have here, the history that we have in manufacturing and the interest that we have and also the logistical advantages that we have here, both, a port, 3 international airports just on the US side, rail, highway, and so on. It's an ideal place, to develop that and to position ourselves to take advantage, of the reshoring that's happening right now. Since COVID, we had, disruptions in the supply chain and showed, the vulnerability of supply, the supply chain, to the U.S. And now we are rethinking our model, of, outsourcing everything. A lot of it is coming back and going, to Mexico, but some of it is also coming back. Actually, a big chunk is coming to the U.S. But we are ideally positioned, to capture some of that, reshoring, that's coming here. And by, the ones that are going to Mexico is because there are advantages in being in Mexico. And chief amongst them is cheap labor. Labor cost is much lower. But with advanced manufacturing, automation, and so on, we can attract industries that are not labor intensive, but are capital intensive, technology driven, or even energy intensive, because energy here is a little cheaper than it is on the Mexican side. Yeah.
Are there any Swedish companies in either Reynosa or Matamoros at the moment?
Well, there is Autoliv, which is a major company in Matamoros. They are in the automotive sector, big supplier to the OEM, to Ford, General Motors, all the major companies, they supply them. So it's probably one of the biggest suppliers to the automotive sector. But we are looking to bring other manufacturers, other industries, from food packaging and food processing and so on. As you know, we have a lot of produce that comes from Mexico, transit through our region and then goes. But there is very little value added here. So we are just a pass-through kind of economy. What we have I've talked with some friends in Sweden, actually one of the innovation centers that specializes in food, and they run one of the best food hackathons, and they add value to different, their processes to add value to raw food and produce and so on. And we talked about, collaborating with some of our communities to establish food hackathons. Actually, we talked with BCIC and, to start a first food hackathon and see how we can take some of that produce that's coming here and add in value before it's shipped. So we don't just capture, the value just from the transportation and housing it here. So the warehousing and so on. We can transform it here and then send it and capture a bigger, share of the value. So that's one of the industries that we are looking, to bring here. We have also a company that's very, very interesting. We are, talking with BCIC about bringing it here and bringing the manufacturing of it here. And it's all served. So they have developed technologies to compost and recycle organic waste, especially food waste. And usually food waste, when you have ideal conditions, it's a few months to convert it, from raw food waste into compost that can be used. They can do it in 24 hours. So it can save a lot of space. McAllen does some composting, but they compost brush and stuff, so it takes them sometimes up to 1 year to compost it. So they're doing a great job, diverting organic waste from the landfill. But with this technology, we can make the operation a lot more efficient. So they are using, I believe, about 50 or 55 acres, because the process is time-consuming. So it takes time, to process it and so on. We can do it in 24 hours. So you don't need all that space to store waste and wait for it to decompose. You can do it in 24 hours. It comes today, it's ready to go out tomorrow. And it increases also the value of whatever you are processing. And we can manufacture those systems here because nobody is doing it.
Are you using the background?
No.
Last question then, Mostafa, because they want to take down the backdrop here. Anything else you'd like to add? Anything we've missed that you would like to add about your work here in the Rio Grande Valley?
It's very interesting to be in the Rio Grande Valley because to me it's almost like a blank canvas. You go to other areas like Chicago, which is a thriving manufacturing hub. Whereas here there are opportunities. We are in a great location and we have huge potential, especially with having the port and having our partners on the other side of the border that we can leverage, and university and several community colleges that can help prepare the workforce. And with what's happening with reshoring and industry 4.0, it's a great time to be here and be part of launching something that would change the community. Yeah.
Thank you so much for today's interview.